Welcome back to another edition of the Whole Perspective. My name is Kevin Delory. As always, joined by my right-hand man and good friend, Kenny Phillips, Senior Vice President of Lending at EP. Today, we have a very special guest. This man was responsible for my best round of golf ever. And he was also responsible for one of the saddest days in my sports fan life, and that was February 3rd, 2008, when the Giants beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Welcome, everyone, Dr. Nate Zinsser. I'll let Kenny do a quick intro and we'll get right into it.
Absolutely. He's a world-class sports and performance psychology consultant with extensive experience advising professional, Olympic, and D1 collegiate athletes, surgeons, corporate team leaders, and military units. Nate has been a consultant to the Philadelphia Flyers and New York Giants for 12 seasons. His expertise is training individuals and teams in psychology of elite performance, confidence in the face of setbacks, personal and group value, clarification and goal setting, attention control, and concentration enhancement, stress, and energy management. He has a PhD in sports psychology and the author of The Confident Mind. Welcome, Nate Zinsser.
Thank you, gentlemen. Kevin, I'm glad I could help your golf game. No apologies about New York Giant victories over New England Patriots.
I'm going to apply this to my golf game because I have an issue with my driver, so maybe this will help me.
100% it will. But I want to start with a quote, and it was victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. And that's from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And I think that when I read your book, it was great. It actually, it really changed things for me as far as my thought process. You think negative, you'll get negative results. And I think that quote right there says it all. What does that quote mean to you? I think, a lot of your book talks about this. It's the whole concept.
Certainly. That quote, in a way, summarizes or encapsulates everything that I have done in the world of performance psychology, research study, advising, training for the last 40 years. If your confidence is dependent upon a result, you basically guarantee yourself a roller coaster ride, ups and downs. Nobody, even Tom Brady, is not going to succeed all the time. It's just, we live in a physically imperfect universe. We are all physically imperfect human beings by nature. So we have to be able to maintain a certain attitude despite ups and downs. And I think Sun Tzu really hit it. If you're going into battle, and we can use that term metaphorically, whether we're talking about a real firefight with real bullets flying, or we're talking about just the everyday battles with your waistline or with your customer base or with your work team. If we're going into those everyday battles, you got to kind of win the battle first in your own heart and mind. And then you go about working it, as opposed to, okay, here I go. I sure hope it works out well. And then you go into battle. You got to win that first victory. When I was writing the manuscript, I was actually considering the first victory as the title of the book. My editor at HarperCollins said, yeah, let's eliminate a little ambiguity and make it more upfront, The Confident Mind. I said, yes, sir, that's a good one, and we ran with it. But the whole idea is, if you are going to play a game, if you're going into a negotiation, if you're going into a deal, if you're a surgeon going into the operating room to resect a tumor off somebody's spinal cord, you want to win it in your own heart and mind first. And that opens you up and lets all of your talent and training and experience come to the fore, as opposed to, gee, I'm not sure. That interferes with your ability to see what's relevant. It interferes with your ability to draw from your experience the right response at a given moment. And it interferes with your fingers, if you're a surgeon, your mouth, if you're a lecturer. It interferes with the actual execution of your desired skill.
I think it's something. There's another book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. It's all about mindset. I read this book first. And the minute I picked up The Confident Mind, that's exactly what I was thinking of, is when you can win in your mind, when you could overcome all of these external obstacles and in your mind be true, it's that mindset, you'll win 90% of the time. Yeah, that's half the battle, right? It's getting that mindset.
It is so much of the battle. And Viktor Frankl's contribution to all of us is the reminder that it does not matter where we are. It does not matter the conditions we are under. We have that, as he put it, last human freedom to determine our attitude and determine our thought process. And if fellas like Viktor Frankl can do it under the conditions that he experienced, then there's nothing stopping the rest of us who are engaged in the world of business here in the 21st century. There's nothing to stop us from doing it either.
That's great, right, Kenny? Especially in the market we're in. We're in a downturn in the market, and people are coming in with the mindset. And I try to explain to them, if you have that mindset, you lost already. Don't bother getting on the phone. Don't bother doing a presentation. Don't bother talking to that next client because you've lost. If you come in and looking for the win and you know you can win, yeah, you might have a few setbacks, but you'll end up, on the leaderboard before the day's over.
Absolutely.
Right. I think that says a lot, Kevin, because in sales, in our company and in our industry, it's more important to have that confidence when you're going into these conversations. And you said something about, the mind being like a repository where you deposit, you said deposit memory of success and the confidence account and the account grows. And if you think about the setbacks, the account shrinks. I think when you enter a market like today, a lot of companies, a lot of salespeople, that account shrunk to anything because they're worried about what's going on. They don't have the confidence to go out and sell. So talk about the bank and that repository theory about your mind and depositing positive information into your mind.
Sure. The reality about confidence for any human being is that, as we've been discussing, it is a function of how you think. It is a function of how you think about yourself, how you think about your work, and how you think about all the things that take place in your world of work or in your world of sport or art or chosen profession. If we accept the proposition that your confidence is a function of how you think, and certainly, the work of Viktor Frankl and other people indicate that it is, then you have to be daggone careful about how you think. And so it is to your advantage to look at your confidence as basically a running total of everything that you think, a running total, just like your bank account is a running total of how much do-re-mi you've got in there at any given moment. So please, ladies and gentlemen, build up that psychological bank account by making sure that you think a heck of a lot of the time about past accomplishments, present successes, present opportunities, future visions of how it could be and how you want it to be. If that constitutes 85% of your thinking, you're going to build up your mental bank account. If, however, you are dominated by thoughts of fear that the market's going to continue to go south, rehashing losses, rehashing mistakes, rehashing the deals that didn't go through, if that's 85% of how you think about yourself across the course of a day or a week or a whole quarter, well, then your bank account, your level of confidence is just going to peter out and peter out and peter out. Just like if you write a whole lot of checks and now your bank balance is dwindling down to nothing.
Yeah, that's great. I would recommend anyone that's read this book, if you don't stick with it, pick it up and read it again, because I just read it again. And, when I said earlier in the golf game, it was, I was doing my CBA, right? I would get up and there would be no negative thought like, oh, I hope I don't hit the tree. No, I'm going to hit it dead straight and I'm going to hit it far. And that was the only thought I had in my head. And that, when you think that way and you breathe and get in touch with your body, all of that just it happens. But I had to go back and read it again. It was funny because I walked in there. One of the gentlemen that worked for us, one of our teammates said, "Remember the confident mind." Because last year we played in the tournament. He's like, "Wow, you're playing awful." He's like, "It's in your head," and he was 100% right. Every time I get up there, I thought of every negative thought, every negative thing that could happen when I made contact. And what a difference when you get up there and with that mindset, I'm hitting it straight and I'm going to hit it a mile.
What a difference it makes. One of my ongoing clients is an orthopedic surgeon out in Ohio. And he told me yesterday that he is right now reading the book for the 6th time. And every time he reads it, he finds new subtleties that make a great deal of sense to him. And he said almost exactly what you just mentioned, Kevin, going into a procedure with an absolutely clear state of mind. Not, okay, I'm worried about this complication. I'm worried about this piece of equipment. Is this nurse going to be, on his game? Absolutely clear. And he looked at me and said, and it went so well. That's what we're talking about. You can position yourself to give yourself the very best opportunity to have a heck of a game, a heck of a negotiation, a heck of an outcome. It's not a guarantee. I'm the first person to acknowledge that. It's not a guarantee. But boy, does it give you a lot more ammunition, to use the military term.
When coaching athletes and business professionals and leaders, I read your book and it talks about creating a deja vu moment, really walking through it. Can you talk about that, how important that is when you're going to approach an event or Super Bowl or whatever it may be?
Absolutely. The idea is to familiarize yourself with what you might be encountering. Okay. If I'm going to give a presentation at, the Yale University orthopedic intern program, if I'm going to lecture at Grand Rounds, I want to have a pretty good idea of what the room's going to look like, where people are going to be seated, what kind of podium and screen, and what's the lighting going to be like. I want to feel at home in that situation. I want to have an idea of what it's going to be like. So when I walk into that room, I'm not surprised by anything. I'm not going through a big orientation period. I'm comfortable in it. Okay. Preparing for a big game, preparing for a particular, playing golf on a particular course. All right. I'm daggone sure I'm going to walk the course. So I know the course. And then after walking the course, before I actually play the round, I'm going to sit back and I say, okay, looks like the first tee is going to look like that. Looks like this particular hole that's really, really long is going to require this many shots to get on the green. Oh, this green looks high and double tiered and challenging this way. And I think things are going to break this way. So when you get there, it's like, okay, I've seen it. I've envisioned myself being successful in those moments. And in that way, it sort of becomes a deja vu. It's like, hey, yeah, I've been here before. I'm comfortable. Let's go. Very helpful in just about any human performance context we could talk about.
I went back and watched the video, the highlights of the Super Bowl with Eli, and you could see it in his eyes, the confidence. I just wanted to say, let me see what this was all about. Let me see if I could see a difference. And I could tell, that swagger, that confidence that you could just, I always say it's the power of it. And I tell people if you don't get it, you don't have it. It's something that you have that you can't, it's an intangible trait that you just can't, have. And I looked in, watching the replay, looking at his eyes, I could see that.
Yeah.
He had it that day.
And his teammates fed off that. His nickname was Easy E because he would come into the huddle, fourth quarter, team is behind. We need to move the ball and score. And he had an ease about himself, which really helped the 10 other guys in the huddle feel at ease and feel comfortable. It's like, yeah, we can do this, as opposed to, oh, geez, this is really clutch. We've got to do it. Right? Anytime you walk into a performance situation thinking, okay, I've got to nail this, I've got to be this way, you're basically putting yourself under a great deal of pressure. I've got to nail this or else. And there you leave that little or else just sort of dangling. You don't, even if you don't say it to yourself, the feeling is there. I've got to nail this. That introduces a level of tension that's unnecessary and counterproductive. You could just as easily walk into that same situation and saying, okay, let's see how well I can do here. Let's see how well we can play. Oh, guys, here we are. Let's move the damn ball down the field and win this freaking game. It's a simple choice, but you have to practice making it over and over again so that you can indeed make it in the biggest, most complicated, potentially pressure-filled moments of your life. And the Eli Mannings of the world practice that so that it is indeed pretty much their default setting when it comes to fourth quarter situations, playoffs, and Super Bowls.
You're spot on.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this, because you talk about the confidence bank and having confidence when you approach situations, and then they hear the term sometimes overconfidence. The thing is overconfidence?
I don't know if there's any such thing as overconfidence. I think there is such a thing as maybe misplaced confidence. Okay? I mean, if you've done the work to prepare yourself for a game, for a negotiation, for a presentation, if you've done the work, well, then you can be as confident as you want. If you haven't done the work and you're trying to fake it, that's misplaced confidence. So that's the way I think about that stuff, Kenny.
Interesting.
As working at West Point, being an institution there, really, you work with some of the greatest leaders in the world, in my opinion, because if you can lead a man into battle, that's a true leader. It's, one in the confidence that you have to have. And I'm going to share a quick story with you. My very first job, a gentleman turned to me and said, if we're in a foxhole, who was my boss at the time, he said, if we're in a foxhole and I yell charge, would you run behind me? And I said, absolutely not. And he said, why? I said, well, how do I know you're going to run all the way? Or how do I know you can throw me in front? I don't know enough about you. Fast forward a year later, I'm leaving his company, go work somewhere else. He asked me the same question. I said, 100%. So why? I have the confidence to know that you're going to lead the way and I'm going to be right beside you. And I know if anything happens to me, you got me. And if anything happens to you, I have you. So you train these men that are asking people to put their life on the line. That is like, we talk about the athletes, talk about Eli and all these other people. But that to me has to be the toughest job. And it's what you said. They have to really be able to see the next step. And they can't be overconfident. It has to be just, everything has to be thought out. If A happens, then B happens. If B happens, then C happens. So, how much pressure do these guys put themselves under to be the leader that they need to be and have the confidence that they need to have to lead these young men into battle?
I think they put themselves under a heck of a lot of pressure throughout their training. Okay. A young man, a young woman is going to come into West Point at age 18, 19. In some cases, they graduate from high school and at the top of their class, valedictorians, salutatorians, class presidents, team captains, all state this, all region that. 2 weeks later, they show up at West Point and they're at the bottom of the food chain. And boy, is that reinforcing. They have to learn how to be a great follower. Presumably the upperclassmen at West Point who are leading these are giving them a good example. So they're under tremendous pressure to really be organized, to really be detail-oriented. And that continues throughout their 47-month cadet experience. They are put under tremendous pressure, academic training, military training, physical training. Responsibilities increase as they go through West Point. And the idea is that I have learned how to take care of myself. I have learned how to be optimistic and focused pretty much in whatever I'm doing. And so now when I inherit the mantle of platoon leadership upon graduation, I can be that kind of guy that inspires a certain degree of loyalty from the soldiers that I am now charged to lead. So it's by putting yourself under that pressure, developing a sense of yourself that other people can feel comfortable with, so that they are willing to follow you. That doesn't mean you're full of bluster and arrogance. A lot of the best leaders, as soon as those young lieutenants show up at their, Fort Moore or Joint Base Lewis McChord or wherever, the first thing they do is go to the veteran platoon sergeant, the veteran non-commissioned officer who's been in that unit for 5, 10, 20 years sometimes. Poop me up, top. Tell me what's going on here. Tell me what I need to know. There's a humility about the best leaders as well. That draws people in even further. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah. I just would say to our listeners, for people that think it's so tough to lead in the business world, put yourself in those shoes and you realize how small and insignificant that it is compared to these brave men and women. So I think this book, for anyone, if this works for the best of the best in the country that are leading these young men, it works for you that are sitting behind a desk and won't need to pick up the phone and have a little confidence in your voice. So I just want to keep things in perspective for everyone.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we put that story of then Captain Stoney Portis right up in the front. A story about a deadly combat encounter in eastern Afghanistan, and Captain Portis's self-regulation, how he had to think, being in control of his thoughts, being in control of his breath, being in control of where he was putting his attention when bullets were flying and RPGs were flying and lives were on the line. This stuff works.
I jotted down a line out of your book, and I wanted to ask a question on it. It says, thought and anticipation will compromise your ability, which is interesting because, playing sports when I was younger, they always say, all right, anticipate the play or things like that. And now you're saying that it could compromise your ability. So I want to ask that question, get clarification on how does that affect you?
Well, if you are anticipating behavior X or behavior Y or behavior Z, you may miss out on behavior A, B, and C because you're not open to it. You've decided it's going to be a certain way. If you're 100% certain that your tennis opponent is going to serve down the middle of the service court, but then she serves wide, you're gonna have to jump. How about putting yourself in a state of receptiveness where whatever happens, you're ready for it? You can't predetermine a lot of actions. You can't predetermine a lot of outcomes. You can have an idea of this is how I would like this to end up, and then you put that in the back of your mind, and then that's what I want to. That's the outcome I hope will transpire. But the process of getting it, you have to be wide open into the moment, very present, or else you're going to miss something potentially very important.
Yeah, that's key in our industry. I think, it's, you had a line in the book, getting the last word. I think a lot of times people let the negative thought get the last word.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to pick up this call, but I already know they're going to say no, but I have to go through the process. Well, how do you know? Why are you going to let that be the last word for you before you pick up that phone, before you have that conversation, before you do that presentation? Why not? I'm going to crush it, or I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm the best version of myself.
Yeah.
Be a little more confident versus, and I love that you said that, protect your confidence, get in the last word.
Yeah. Protect your confidence. there are all kinds of thieves that are going to get in there and try to steal the money from your mental bank account, and you might be unwittingly the biggest thief of all because you've cultivated the habit for whatever reason to think, well, I'm probably not going to do well here, or this is kind of like a situation that didn't turn out well for me 3 days ago or last week or last month. And now you've become your own worst enemy as opposed to your own best friend. I mean, your best friend would, if she was sitting right next to you, would be telling you as you pick up that phone to make that call, okay, you got a good chance of making this. Let's see how good it can be. That's what your best friend would be whispering in your ear if he or she was right there. And paradoxically, if you were sitting next to your best friend while he or she was on the phone getting ready to make a call, what would you be telling him? You got this, man. This is your chance. Let's go for it. You would tell that to your best friend. How about telling it to yourself? How about giving that same compassion and support that you find it pretty natural to give to somebody else that you're close to? How about giving that to yourself? Boy, that's a real shift for just about anybody in our world, because we think, oh, you got to be really strict with yourself and you can't be that nice and you can't be that compassionate. That's going to make you weak and complacent. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's a huge misconception. Let's throw that out the window and be a lot more effective.
Bingo. That's what I always say. That's right on. I'll tell you, it's a lot of doom and gloom, and people, the self-talk really crushes their confidence. My best friend is my self-talk, right? And every day, and I wish I could do it more with my golf game than I do in business, but I'll take it where I can get it. And that's why I picked up the book again. I'll read it again and again until I master my CBA, get a pre-shot routine down. And can you explain CBA to the audience, and maybe this could help some people?
Sure. The CBA is just a simple mnemonic, a memory device, just to help you cue up your conviction. Cue up your conviction. Give yourself a little positive self-talk. Now, if you've been developing your psychological bank account for days and weeks, you're going to have plenty of material to cue up your conviction with. You're going to have plenty of good memories, plenty of good self-talk. So you got to give yourself that little cue. C. B. Breathe. Breathe your body into the moment. Once you've learned how to breathe and once you've practiced breathing, it's really hard to get all concerned about other stuff when you're actually paying attention to your breath, because your breath is happening in the present moment. So I'm going to sort of bring myself up. I'm going to cue up some conviction. I'm going to breathe, B, and then A, attach my awareness to what matters. Okay? I got to attach my awareness to the room that I'm working in. I got to attach my awareness to the ball that my opponent's about to serve. I got to attach my awareness to the target that I want to hit that golf ball to. CBA. Cue your conviction, breathe your body, attach your awareness. You practice that, you work it, you get very good at it. It just becomes the way you are over time.
Well, you gave us a lot of great takeaways. I'll tell you, I appreciate it, Dr. Nate. Podcast is really about defining value. One of our staple questions is, how do you define your value? So in terms of your clientele and what you do on a day-to-day basis, how do you define your value?
How do I define my personal value? By the success I have connecting to whoever I'm working with. Okay? I don't necessarily define my value by who I am working with. I define my value in how well I can connect with that individual or that room full of people at any given time. Okay? It's the quality of the relationship in the moment. That's what I think is truly valuable. I think that leads to a lot of other nice outcomes, but that's where the value sits for me, anyhow. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
I would tell everyone, you got to get this book. You got to get it and read it again and again until you master this. And I'm probably 5 more I master it, but it sits on my desk. It's one book that every person I meet, I tell that this book, if you could master this, it could change your life, especially in the market we're in. This is what you need. You don't need lower rates. You don't need more customers. This will get you everything you want. It's that simple.
As he said, exercise the confidence muscle.
Yeah, Kenny, by the way, it's now up to 4-1 wrestlers versus track guys.
He said jiu-jitsu.
Well, he wrestled as well when he was younger, so I count that as a win for the rest. I wrestled as well, Dr. Nate. So the 4-1 for the track and field guys. You guys are losing. But Dr. Nate, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you jumping on with us. This is great. This is exactly what people need to hear in our marketplace, because it's all about doom and gloom. And rather than having that confident mind and attacking, they're letting all the negative news attack them and bring them down. They're letting that negative news get the last word.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on with you. My best to all of your listeners. And thank you, gentlemen, for advertising and sharing the idea of my book. I'm very much in your debt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cue the video. As always, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Whole Perspective. You can always check us out at the Empower Brokers community on Facebook or at epmwholesale.com. You can always email Kenny or myself directly at kevin@epm.net or kenny@epm.net. Thanks, and look forward to seeing you soon.